Morning, students. Hope you all are well. Welcome back to second session of module Nutrition, Biochemistry, and Exercise for Health. And today in this session, we are going to be studying about the metabolism of iron and calcium. If still you have any question or confusion, you can email me as it is below in this slide, and also can book to me by calendar as well. So now we are going to the recap that what we have done before in the previous week, what you have studied with me and also did by yourself. That was that what are the assessments in these modules are that you are going to be do in this module. So these assessments are divided into two parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is related to the examination test of 30 minutes and its weightage is 25%. While the session 2 of the assessment, you unpacked it also in previous session with me, that on which you have to write a case report. It have the more weightage, and you will do later on after the test part 1 assessment. After then, you studied about the introduction of this module and about the body composition, that what body composition is, how it can be defined and its state, and what are the differences and which models can be applied to assess the body composition of a human body, and what are the methods that can be used to assist to examine the body composition of the body. For example, body fat, percentage of the body fat in a human body, either in an athlete or a normal obese person. So you can analyze by these direct and indirect methods that you have already discussed and studied with me. Now today in this module, what you are going to study the learning outcome 2. And this learning outcome 2 you also can see in your handbook. So what it covers that this learning objective that you are going to be studied today, unpack today, it is the explain the interrelationship between the select macronutrients at the cellular level. So which macronutrients you are going to actually cover in this session, that these are the iron and calcium. So you will recap about the metabolism of iron and calcium, then what are the sources and what are the functions of iron and calcium in our body, and what will be the consequences on our health if we get the deficiency of the iron or the toxicity in our body. Yeah. So what do you think? What do you mean by the iron? You remember that it is actually a metal. You have it studied in your schools in a periodic table, and what the periodic table is, a set, a group of the elements, the ores and elements, minerals that are available in the earth. So we put it in a periodic table, and in periodic table where iron comes at number position of 26 as a transitional metal, as a metal. So do we eat metal in a form of a proper iron form? No, in the form of the food, but it is the source. So what actually the difference is? We will study it. We eat iron in the form of ions, not like a whole metal or a solid or a crystal. So how, in which form we are taking from the small ions, such as in the form of nuts, egg, green leaf vegetables, dates. So these are the common sources we are taking to eat the iron, and which is the basic requirement of our body. So what actually the micronutrient is? So do you know the difference? What the mean is macronutrients and what is the macronutrient? Is there any difference or the same thing? Here the word nutrient, nutrients is similar in both. So it means nutrients means that the food we eat or we require to survive, to live life. This is the nutrient, but the difference is coming for the micro and the macro. Macro means the amount of the food that we require to survive, to live our life in the huge amount, in large amount, such as the carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in our body. While the micronutrients is different, because micro means the amount of the food that we require in small amount, not in a huge amount like the carbohydrates and proteins. So these are also the requirement, basic necessity basic need of our life to survive for our body function, but they are not required in very large amount to live, to survive for our body. And the basic, another difference is that macronutrients give us the energy to daily function our life in the form of the calories, ATP, while the macronutrients are providing our body support to function to of our body. So they are actually giving the help and the supporting function to our body. For example, iron and calcium for the bone health and for the maintenance of the body functions, our immunity, while the carbohydrates and proteins point to give the calories as well. So that's why they need more amount than these micronutrients. Then we come to the transitional matter. It is called as a transitional matter, as I showed to you in the periodic table. And why we say it as a transitional matter, this is the recap, and I hope you recall it. Why we call it as a transition metal? Because it has the capability that it can readily oxidize when exposed to the oxygen. You observe that iron easily gets the rust. Why? Because it usually, as it is exposed to the oxygen, it readily absorbed it. So that's why from the rust. And it can easily also can be reduced. So it can be available in both form, oxidized and reduced form. That's why it is called as the transition metal. And what are the main functions of iron in our body? That it provides the oxygen by binding the hemoglobin and regulates the energy production of our body. So what do you understand by this? In our body, we need oxygen. Why? Because in our blood, we have RBCs called as the red blood cells. They have a special protein called as hemoglobin, which have the property to bind the oxygen. And this hemoglobin is mainly composed of the iron. It carries the iron. And here now, the nature is using iron because iron has the capability to readily react with oxygen. It takes oxygen with it, carry oxygen with it. So by this mean, iron is helping us in the form of the hemoglobin to carry the oxygen throughout our body. And this oxygen is why it is required, because oxygen helps in different chemical processes in our body where we need to produce our energy, to produce our different body parts like the proteins, to build muscles, because every time in our body wear and tears occur. So we daily required these micronutrients as well, along with macronutrients. And here now I'm giving by the picture the examples of the functions of iron. For example, it supports our health, growth, and development, like in children. So we need iron because of this, for the wear and tear happening in our body, to carry the oxygen in our blood so that it can be transported to perform the different body functions. And for example, we see, if we notice the hair, nails, that are also composed of the iron. They contain iron in our body. So that's why we require. Then different our body parts, for example, include this development of the some organs of the body, like the liver, spleen, eyes, and other different functions of the body. Then myoglobin, it is also formed of the protein that is need iron to function and to be developed. Then it also helps to maintain our energy level of the body, that is called as the oxidative phosphorylation. That just means the production of energy, ATP, calories in our body, so that we can function in our body. Without the ATP energy, we cannot function. So that's why energy is needed. And how this can be transformed in the presence of the oxygen. And in detail in the oxidative reaction, you will study in further sessions with me. What another role of iron in our body is that it keeps the level of oxygen in our muscles as well, so that our muscles can contract, can relax, can function to pick any object. So this, or to walk. So this is another role of iron. What are the sources of iron in our body? We are taking iron in different forms from our diet, such as by eating meat, liver, poultry eggs, seafood, by eating some fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, some enriched products like cereals, bread, whole whole grain fiber bread, whole grain bread, and some green vegetables. And further now, in next slide, I'm showing you these examples by means of the pictures. That's is through the animal origin, that example meat that we take off from the beef, lamb, poultry, or from the liver, which is the high-rich source of the iron. In the deficiency, it is very helpful if we take it, and because it has much more absorption. Other forms of the animal sources are salmon, that is from the seafood, and the tuna, prawns, and from the plant origin, there are examples of nuts, legumes such as beans, in which these examples are the butter beans, chickpeas, kidney peas, and among the nuts like the cashews, and other examples are eggs from the poultry, chicken, dates that are also the good high source of the food iron, heme, and green leafy vegetables like spinach and broccoli. Here, this slide is describing what the daily intake in our body have, that a normal human body should consume 8 milligram of iron every day, which is the basic requirement to survive, to normal function of our body. However, in females, there is more requirement, that is 18 milligram per day. And these are the different forms that we already have discussed. We will discuss the reason as well, but in next slides. Now here, another thing is coming, what this picture is showing in this slide, that we are taking iron from different forms, from the different origins, that are the animal and plant origins. So is there any difference, or these both types of the iron are same? Sort of, but some amount, 40% of the heme in animal origin, like meat, poultry, they carry 40% iron that is heme origin. Heme means that, for example, in our blood, we contain the heme protein that contains more iron. So that's why this animal origin iron, or the heme, they contain more iron and more greater absorption in our body, which is 30% more than the plant origin. So we can also divide the sources of the iron into heme sources, non-heme sources, plant sources, and animal sources. Here now, this table is showing the daily requirement of iron according to the age. You should have to know in this module. And it will also help you if it comes in your assessment as well. So the daily requirements of iron in infants from 0 to 3 months to 12 months of age, that requirements are 1.7 to 7.8 milligrams per day. And while in children from 1 year to 10 years, the requirements is increasing 6.9 to 8.7 milligrams per day. So can you please tell me what is actually the reason why the requirements are increasing according with age? I mean, children, infants, and toddlers, children as well. The reason is the development, because with the age in children, they are developing towards to getting adult. For their growth, for their body, for their height, for their body functions, and they have much higher metabolism. That's why they require more iron than the adolescents or others. But when we go, still in adolescents need, okay, right, boys need 11.3, then adults 8.7 milligram per day. Then it is stuck. After then, they will need not more than this. But see now another thing, if females require more in adults, that is 14.8 milligram per day. Now the reason is why we are not stuck until 8.7, now become more mature adults. In females, the reason is that they monthly bleed, so there is loss of hemoglobin iron as well. So that's why they need more iron than males. But after menopause, they both have the same requirement to take 8.7 milligram per day iron. Now, here is a recap about the digestive system that you already have studied in your schools. What that how our digestive system is composed of, on what parts. That first is covering the oral cavity from where we take our food, and from the oral cavity food passes down through a tube called as esophagus. After the esophagus, the food goes into the stomach that carries the acid and digests food here inside. After the stomach, this part of our digestive system divided into two. First, small intestine, then other surrounding is the large intestine. Small intestine is further, it divides into three, called as the duodenum, then middle part duodenum, after then ileum, and ileum then connects to the large intestine. Large intestine, we carry the undigested food that remained after the digestion and then will defecate it out while defecation in the form of feces. If we observe where in the part of our digestive system food absorbs, it absorbs is actually in a small intestine, because see, it has a large surface area. This is the reason. Here most of the absorption of our food takes place. And when we see in microscope, why the reason, another reason we find out that it has some finger-like projections inside in their lumen called as the villi or microvilli. In this, the lining of the cells are very specialized and have some specialized proteins that carry the specific nutrients inside and carry into the blood. From the blood, then they transfer it to the specific part of the body where the specific nutrient is required. But here we are studying about the iron, so just we will discuss it about only iron, not the other nutrients. So iron is absorbed through a protein called, that is the, I would say, general term, that is the vitamin B12. In the presence of the vitamin B12, B12 is needed. So where it is, in which part of the intestine it is absorbed, obviously in a small intestine, but which part of the small intestine, that is called as the duodenum, and the proximal part, which means the initial upper part of the duodenum. And from here it passes the mucosa, then into the bloodstream, and how it is transported. All nutrients in our body are not transported directly in the blood, but they want someone to carry them so that they can go to the specified location. And I'm giving you the example. For example, when you are new here, coming to the campus, you don't know where you have to go. So someone will help you from the staff or the faculty to go to this room or the reception, go upstairs and sit in that room. So there is someone to guide you, to pick you. Like the same, the iron, when it comes inside the body, transfer will receive it, bind with it, and carries to the specific part of the body where it is required, it is needed. And the specific main body part is the bone marrow, where it requires iron to produce hemoglobin for RBCs, for our blood to carry oxygen for the breathing and for our body functions. Now the metabolism of iron. Iron is required of our body, but what happened when we take extra amount of the iron? What happened then if the extra amount of the iron is absorbed and the body not needing more, then it stores iron in the form of ferritin, a protein in our body. But it also wastes the remaining amount of iron which it is not absorbing, because our body absorbs iron how much it is required, but it is not exactly the perfect procedure, perfect functioning, but it does a little bit. So the extra amount is stored in the form of the ferritin as a hemosiderin in the liver, spleen, and bone marrow. But that amount of the extra undigested, unabsorbed iron, it is then secreted through the large intestine in the form of feces. And in which cases we require much more iron than the normal our body diets, normal routine. And the example is the pregnancy. Now, this is the important, you must know about this, that how much the body, our body can store iron. It is 3 to 5 grams only. 70% out of this 3 to 5 grams, 70% of the iron is stored in the form of the hemoglobin in our RBCs in the blood, while the 20% of iron is stored in the form of the ferritin and hemosiderin in the liver, while 5% of iron in our body is present in our muscles in the form of the myoglobin protein, and 5% is used in various enzymes in our body for functioning. And here this picture is showing the RBCs, the red blood cell, which is one of the component of our blood that carries the hemoglobin, which binds oxygen with it. There is no need to go in so much detail that what the heme is microscopically composed of and the genes. What happens if our body having a deficiency? First tell me that how we can cause a deficiency of iron in our body. One reason is maybe nutritional deficiency. Person have less availability of food or eating less. Or another reason, lack of the dietary intake, such as among the vegans, they are only taking plant sources food, not from the animal sources. Second is the blood loss. And this is the main thing. For example, in female, it is common by the menstruation. And the other cause can be the pathological, that is the malabsorption. And that is means that the problem in the digestion in a person, like in diarrhea and the colic diseases. In colic diseases, there is a disturbance in digestive system. And then inflammation, that is also related to the inflammation of the bowel digestive system. Is it possible to suffer from excess iron storage? Yes, iron also has toxicity because I told you that its mechanism is not perfect. It can also absorb somewhat extra iron, but especially in some of genetic cases. In genes, there is some specific hereditary familial diseases coming from among the families, and it is called as the hereditary hemochromatosis. So hereditary hemochromatosis, in which what happened, body have not proper well-programmed functioning, so it absorbs too much iron in the body, while that is stopping to absorb the extra amount of iron and excreting the feces, it absorbs all iron inside. And what happened in result, oxidative state in our body, the formation of ATP, iron, calories, all disturbs, and the lot of extra amount of iron then is stored in different parts of the body, like heart and liver and other organs, so impacting the functioning of the organs. And in result, what happens? It may cause the life-threatening conditions to that person, such as liver diseases, heart diseases, and diabetes. Now I'm showing you a video and ending my lecture after this video. Hope it will help you.